know about that and how to prepare and handle the wait times for those rides moving forward. At 2:40, we're speaking with Fox 13 Tampa reporter Kimberly Quizon about a freak accident during a Florida rodeo. She spoke to the man injured in that. At 2:20, it is Playbook Tuesday with Politico Florida. A lot to cover when it comes to politics. There's also a new advisor in town, Sheriff Grady Judd, named to the Immigration Council in the state of Florida here. We are going to speak with Nancy Gay about that in our Tampa connection. But first, the First Lady of Florida topping the list of 2026 governor candidates. That is according to a new poll from the University of North Florida Public Opinion Research Lab. She is the top of the list with the highest favorability rating, the most support among potential candidates in the governor's race. That's not the only thing from that poll. It also looked at what issue Florida voters are most concerned about. At the top of that list is housing and property insurance costs. This morning, I got to speak with Dr. Michael Bender, who is the faculty director at UNF's Public Opinion Research Lab. We talked about the findings and what it says about the state of these races. Dr. Bender, your poll finding that the top issue Florida voters are concerned about is housing and insurance costs. What do you make of that?
Yeah, 34% of Floridians think that's the biggest problem facing the state. And it's not shocking based on the last couple of years and what's happened not only to the housing market and the rental market, but the property insurance market has really just been calamitous for so many Floridians.
And that issue has actually seen a big jump. This is in the past few years.
Yeah, 5 years ago, nobody said anything about it. But even just in 2022, 2% of Floridians had mentioned it. Now it's fully, a third plus. And this isn't something that's just hitting a demographic group. This is all parties, all age groups, all races. It is the most important issue facing literally everybody. And it's certainly something that Floridians, not only in Tallahassee, should be thinking about, but also it's reducing people that are moving to the state as well. It's being felt across the country.
And here's some of the other issues that you found, far and away was housing and property insurance. Then you have economy, jobs, and inflation. Immigration and education pretty far down the list there. Did any of your findings when it comes to those issues surprise you?
No, I mean, immigration's gotten so much attention, obviously, at the national level. But unsurprisingly, there's a big split between Democrats and Republicans. It's still the third most important issue for Republicans, but it's at 17% for them. Democrats, it's much further down the list, low single digits.
Now let's talk a little bit about the governor's race because some interesting findings from your poll when it comes to speculative candidates for the 2026 race. Favorability highest for First Lady Casey DeSantis.
Yeah, she's got big favorability numbers, 52% favorable, which is, more than anybody else that we asked about, person-wise anyway. And this bodes well. There's been some rumors of late that maybe she has her eye on taking her husband's seat in Tallahassee. So again, we're a long ways off from that, and I'm sure once the campaign gets going, those numbers will come down a little bit. But it's certainly something to keep an eye on.
And here's some of the other candidates, some of the names. Interesting to see these as well. Because you're seeing such high percentages of people who say they are not familiar with the candidate.
Yeah, the Wilton Simpson number is just astonishing. Only 4% of the people said favorable and unfavorable. The rest never heard of them or didn't know how to rate them. We've never seen an elected official, certainly a statewide elected official, with that large of unknowns, never heard of them.
And so what does that tell us about the state of the race going forward? I would imagine this means that a lot is going to change over the next couple of years.
Yeah, obviously, once we get to the point where these folks have their names in the ring and they start getting attention statewide and they start doing the talk show circuit and they find themselves in the news a lot more, maybe they get an endorsement from somebody in Mar-a-Lago. All these things can change dramatically. It is very, very early on. We literally just had an election a couple of months ago. They haven't even had session yet here in Florida. That's starting up in a week or so. So we're still a little ways away from this, but it's going to get a lot of attention in the next year and a half for sure.
A little bit of consistency there when it comes to Casey DeSantis, though, because she was also the top pick when you first asked the question in 2023 at the time. So what does that tell you about why that might be?
Well, I certainly think being a DeSantis in this state, you got some name recognition, but also the first lady is in a position where she's not really getting blamed for things. She's up there in a real figurehead role type, and it's a positive figurehead role that she's played very well. Those on the inside know that she probably has a little more policy implications than maybe your average first lady has. But to the outside world, to your average voter, they might see her as somebody who's supportive of the governor and supportive of the state of Florida. And right now, that's an advantage for her at this point for sure.
You kind of get to reap the benefits of being in a high position without the ability to kind of make people get mad at you.
It's a great spot to be in.
And so, what else? I know these weren't the only things that you polled. One of the other things was the favorability of President Donald Trump and of Governor Ron DeSantis. Pretty even numbers there.
Yeah, both in the high 40s, not above 50%. Not surprising, doing much better amongst Republicans than Democrats, but still they're at a point where their favorability numbers are in the high 40s and they're very close to each other, as you might expect, notwithstanding their personal feuds over the last year and a half, 2 years.
One of the other things I found interesting was the questions you ask about support for recreational marijuana, especially given the fact that we just had that amendment fail. But you found still, 67% support recreational marijuana in Florida?
Yeah, and I think the failing of the amendment you can look no further than the campaign against it. The efforts that were put forth by DeSantis and the No campaign really knocked down its support levels. It's also true that this is a poll of registered voters. And we know that not everybody that's registered shows up to vote. And the folks that tend to maybe show up to vote, maybe you're a little bit older, maybe you're a smidge more conservative. But certainly, if you didn't have that big No campaign poking holes at specific parts of the amendment, and it was just a ballot question of should we have this or not, I'm exceptionally confident that it would have gotten over that 60% number with ease.
Anything else stand out to you that you want to make mention of?
I mean, I certainly think the Gulf of America / Gulf of Mexico question that we asked about was pretty amusing. There's not as much support as you might expect here in Florida for that. In fact, fully more than half, 59% opposed renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. But again, this is one of those things where you see a big partisan split. 56% of Republicans are supportive of changing it to the Gulf of America, when only 5% of Democrats are. So this is one of those things. There's a big partisan split, and that's not shocking with Trump being at the spearhead of this effort.
You're watching Florida Live on Fox Local and YouTube. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us today. It's time now for today's Tampa Connection, and we go to the Fox 13 newsroom where digital content producer Nancy Gay joins us now. And Nancy, we're taking a deep dive into the issue of immigration today, and that is something that is a big focus of a couple sheriffs with Tampa connections.
County Sheriff Grady Judd and Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri have just been appointed to the newly created State Immigration Enforcement Council.
And Fox 13 had the chance to speak with Sheriff Judd about this appointment. So what did he say about that as far as kind of what law enforcement is going to focus on?
Yes, we did speak with Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd earlier today, and he said it is an honor to have been selected. He says the first focus is going to be on dangerous criminals, and then the second focus is going to be on those who have deportation warrants. Now, Judd said right now, if a law enforcement officer pulls over a vehicle with 4 people inside and those 4 people have deportation warrants, he says that that officer has no way of knowing that because the information is not being put into a national crime database. However, he did say that that is one of the first things that he hopes to work with ICE on.
What we're focusing on is those that cross the border illegally. They're violent, they're dangerous, they violate the laws, they pay no attention to our laws. That's the low-hanging fruit. We're arresting those people every day and have. We have reported them to ICE for years and years and years. In the last 4 years, they've virtually taken very few from us. The reality of it is that's the people we need to get out of the country. The people that came here for the same reasons our forefathers did the right way many years ago, want to work hard, take care of their children, go to church on Sunday, and be productive citizens. They're not on the radar screen now. They'll work on those issues later. What we're after is the criminal. What we're after is the person that's been through due process. And there's well over 1 million of them that's still in this country because the Biden administration, quite frankly, no administration has made an overt effort to get rid of them like they need to. So they're here committing crime. They're here violating the law. So the last person that needs to be concerned is the one that came here inappropriately, illegally, but it's being dealt with as a civil event, not as a criminal event. That's not our focus right now.
Now, did Sheriff Judd talk about any other challenges that law enforcement officers could face?
Yeah, he said there are several challenges that law enforcement officers could face, but perhaps the biggest one is capacity. He says that after these illegal immigrants are arrested, there has to be a place to house them. And so his question is, where will they all go?
In the state of Florida right now, there's only 1,500 federal beds for deportation. 1,500. Did you hear what I said? And most of them are full. So they're adding capacity at Guantanamo. They're going to have to add, if you will, camps or portable detention housing until folks can be removed from the country. Keep in mind, they poured across the border unobstructed by the thousands every day. Most of them are people who wanted to work. A lot of them are criminals who did everything from bring fentanyl that killed our folks to all kinds of drug smuggling to human trafficking. Listen, there's a lot of work. We've all got to work together, but we can and will make a positive difference. I'm excited for this new venture and this new mission.
Now, Nancy, we also know there is a concern that folks have expressed about the possibility of racial profiling. How is that being addressed?
That is something that Sheriff Judd did speak about today, and he said that law enforcement officers in the state of Florida and across the country are professionals and will not engage in racial profiling. He did say, and this is his words that I quote, that it will be like shooting fish in a barrel because these are criminals who already have warrants out for their arrest. Now, Sheriff Judd said that the arresting officers should be able to hand them over to ICE, and then ICE will set them up for deportation. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Sheriff Judd says one of the biggest challenges is capacity, but he also said that some of the rules that are currently in place also pose a significant challenge.
We've set a model for the other states to follow, and we're going to enhance that model of how to help the federal government and how to help ICE. And in the meantime, the president and the secretary is going to have to change the rules so that we can be most effective. These rules have been created over time to stagger or slow down or prohibit deportation of illegal immigrants. We've got to reverse that at the federal level. At the state level, we're going to do all we can to help the president obtain his mission, which was mandated not only in Florida but across the United States by the voters.
And Nancy, we know both of these sheriffs as well also served on the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission that was really focused on making schools safer. Kind of any similarities to the work with that commission to what's going to be going on now?
Yes, Sheriff Judd said he is thrilled to be working with the Pinellas County Sheriff again. And he said that one of the things that they learned from working on that commission together is that if you do the right thing and you put the right data on the table, you can bring about positive change and make things safer for everyone.
The people in the state of Florida are safer. Specifically, the children in the state of Florida are safer today because of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas action by the legislature, the governor, and our commission. We're going to do the same thing for immigration. We're going to make people safer. We hope that the people are here that want to work and behave. They're not the priority. The others, you can self-deport or we're going to lock you up, period.
Now, Sheriff Judd is definitely passionate about illegal immigration, and it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Well, certainly a topic that is going to be a major focus, we know, in the coming weeks and months. So we will definitely see how it plays out. Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection today.
Thank you.
And before we go to break here, one other note with a Tampa connection, and that is that U.S. Attorney Roger Handberg of the Middle District of Florida, that includes Orlando, that includes Tampa, includes other areas like Ocala, Jacksonville, Fort Myers. He is leaving the office. First Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Sweeney going to serve as acting U.S. Attorney here. This is news just coming into our newsroom in the last little bit here. Handberg was appointed by President Biden, and these U.S. attorneys serve at the pleasure of the president, so we know President Trump will soon appoint a replacement. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is a Playbook Tuesday with Politico Florida, and so joining us live now is Gary Fineout, a reporter with Politico Florida. Gary, good to see you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Thanks for having me on. It's always great.
Gary, first thing I want to get is your reaction to this new poll from UNF. Talked about a couple of interesting things. The first being the issues that are most important to Florida voters, and I think come as no surprise that that top issue was housing and property insurance costs.
Right. I think everyone has anticipated that was going to be a top issue and continues to be a top issue. And you know, I've talked to some political consultants who would pretty much tell you that they expect it to be one of the dominant issues in the 2026 governor's race. So that this remains, top on many people's minds. And, you know, while the legislature and the governor have talked about the things that they've done in the last couple of years, it's a situation that's very similar to what's happened with inflation the last few years. The market is, supposedly stabilizing, but the situation is that people are still paying thousands of dollars more for their property insurance than they were just a handful of years ago. And so I think it's logical to assume it will continue to be a big issue.
I also want to get your take on the poll about the governor's race, and I can pull up the numbers there, favorable, unfavorable, from this UNF poll, and get your thoughts on seeing Casey DeSantis at the top of this list right now.
Well, again, I mean, there have been previous polls have been done over the last year or so that have shown that she remains a very popular person, especially among Republicans. If you look at those numbers, you will see that not only she has a favorable number, much higher than several of the Republicans, but when you look inside the Republican numbers, the gap is even wider. So, she's been out there with the governor and many activities. She's been involved in very actions like Hope Florida and different things like that, and an emphasis on trying to help people deal with mental health and other issues. So it's not necessarily surprising that she has those kind of numbers. What I also thought was interesting about that poll was the fact that there are still a lot of people who don't know who Byron Donalds is, even though he's a representative who just 2 days earlier kind of got a thumbs up from Trump on his Truth Social, and has been on Fox a lot. So it's not like he's somebody who doesn't get a fair amount of TV attention. But yes, it's still interesting to see the gap right now.
And I would imagine that Trump endorsement at some point will be a big factor, or could be a big factor in a race like this.
Well, I think that's what everyone on the Republican side is waiting for. Will Trump come out and do a full-blown endorsement, which is exactly, of course, what happened in 2018, where we had Adam Putnam was the agriculture commissioner. He was sort of viewed as the establishment candidate. Ron DeSantis decided to run against him, and it looked like he was a long shot, but then Trump came in and endorsed DeSantis, and that really provided a big boost for his chances. So obviously, especially on the Republican side, a Trump endorsement is going to have a lot of currency. Although I will note, a lot of it's about the timing and when it is, and how strong of an endorsement it is. I mean, I think certainly if Trump does an endorsement sort of like the first part of this year, that's going to be I think that's going to prompt some people who are thinking about running to think again. We still have 2 or 3 people who have been in the mix as possible candidates, but if Trump comes out strong and forcefully, I think on the Republican side, it's going to cause them to have a pause.
Now let's talk about the current governor. You wrote in Playbook this morning about some of the vacancies that the governor has to fill and kind of the ripple effects for 2026 and beyond. Talk to us about that.
Well, obviously the Lieutenant Governor, Jeanette Nunez, resigned on Sunday. Everyone knew she was going to resign because she got picked for be interim president of Florida International University down in Miami. So we knew she was going to resign. But what's interesting is that hearing rumblings that the governor may not fill that position quickly. And so those who were looking at the tea leaves and saying, well, is he going to pick someone as a lieutenant governor who could possibly run to succeed him? Well, we just don't know how that's all going to play out. We don't really know what's going to happen with Casey DeSantis. I mean, obviously the governor was asked about it about a week or so ago and sort of downplayed the notion, said, a lot of people wanted to run but that she isn't really looking at it. My sources have said there have been conversations, but again, it's just like how serious is this? I don't really know. So he has that pick, the LG pick. He has the chief financial officer, which many Floridians may not know a lot about that job. It is a statewide elected position. But the reason that there's a bit of palace intrigue about that is that President Trump has already said he backs a state senator from Sarasota named Joe Gruters for the job. Well, Joe Gruters and DeSantis don't have the closest relationship. And a lot of people have been thinking about another state senator named Blaise Ingoglia, who's from the Citrus County area. Ingoglia has been a strong supporter of the governor and has helped to push through his agenda. And the thing is that there's a lot of people who wonder, well, is the governor going to pick somebody for a job knowing that Trump already has somebody else that he would like to see appointed to it? So again, we have all this, like, are the 2026 elections going to turn into sort of a proxy war between Trump and DeSantis? It's not, of course, that they are under the same party and they have moments when they get along, but of course, DeSantis did run against Trump. And so there's still, and there are a lot of people in Trump world who don't have the highest opinion of the governor.
When it comes to that lieutenant governor pick, and if he does decide to wait, what would be the benefit of that? Or what do you think is from your reporting is part of the decision making there as to holding off instead of just naming someone now?
Well, I think from what I've had people explain to me is that if there is a chance that Casey DeSantis is going to run, you don't want to have mixed signals, that he picks somebody as lieutenant governor and people are going to say, oh, well, is that your successor? Or is it that's going to be Casey is going to be the person that you want to succeed when your time in office is done? Because as you know, the governor has to leave due to term limits. So I think that's part of the sort of the intrigue about that. Who is Governor DeSantis going to find to sort of be his successor? Maybe he doesn't have that happen. I mean, we've had other governors who wanted to see somebody else succeed them and it didn't work out. So, I mean, I think that's what why we're kind of watching this play out with the LG spot.
Meanwhile, there have been more meetings in Tallahassee this week, lawmakers looking at more potential veto overrides when it comes to the line item vetoes from the budget. Where do things stand with that?
Well, over in the House, you've had several committees that have been sort of weighing a lot of different things and coming up with criteria, and they're whittling down their lists of the things that they think they might ask. Some of the stuff that the Governor DeSantis vetoed, was way back in last summer of 24. And for some of these people who've sought the money and wanted funding from the state, they've kind of moved on. But there's other people who are still seeking to get the funding restored. I mean, it's a logistical thing that people need to understand is that even though the governor did the veto of these budget items last summer, the legislature can revisit it all the way up until the end of this upcoming session, which isn't going to end until May. So I think part of me wonders whether or not this is just sort of a reminder to the governor that, hey, this is something that we could do. We could decide to override one of your, and you wonder whether or not it also plays into how they hope their interaction with the governor will be going forward when they draw up a new budget for 25-26.
All right, interesting stuff. A lot of things to keep an eye on, and we know that you are doing that. Gary Fineout, reporter with Politico Florida. Good chatting with you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
I appreciate you having me.
And so just the last thing I'll ask you here, just real briefly, what's the next thing we need to keep an eye out for in Tallahassee?
Well, I mean, I think, we are less than 2 weeks out from the start of a regular session. And, it's going to be intriguing to see what priorities DeSantis is going to ask for. He's going to have a State of the State speech, which is going to come up in the beginning of March. And we're also looking to see what the legislative leaders themselves are going to emphasize. I mean, we've heard a lot of talk about different things that could be on the table, including Senate President Albritton wants to champion what he calls a rural renaissance. We've heard the House Speaker say he wants to do something more related to property insurance. And we're waiting to see what else the governor wants to do. One of the big things the governor does want to do, and he asked the legislature to do it several times now, and they have not done it yet. He wants them to revisit the laws related to condominiums, and he also wants potential changes to how ballot initiatives get on the ballot. As you know, the governor was very much opposed to the amendments last year dealing with abortion and dealing with recreational marijuana, and he wants to make it wants to put in changes the process that makes it kind of harder for things to get on the ballot.
All right, Gary, thank you. We are going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A Louisiana bull rider survived a freak accident in a rodeo in Palmetto. Joining us live now to talk about this is Kimberly Quizon, a Sarasota Manatee Bureau reporter for Fox 13 Tampa. Kimberly, good afternoon to you. We appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right, thank you. So this is a fascinating story. I know it's been getting a lot of attention online, and you had the chance to speak to this man who was injured. Can you just kind of set things up for us as far as what happened?
Sure. So Zach Nagley has been riding bulls for a very long time at this point. He's been riding them since he was a teenager. He was down here in Palmetto participating in this bull riding competition. He's been down here before. He's actually won this competition in the past. And as you can see, that's the video right there. As he was riding the bull, it happens within a split second. The bull's horn went up underneath his helmet, and really it just cut open his neck. It's a pretty big gash right there. He started holding it. They brought him over to a medic tent. The medics that were on site were with Manatee County's search and rescue medical team. And they said that they saw some blood on him. They didn't know exactly what was going on, but when they got to him, they just saw blood pouring out of the wound. So they immediately packed it with some gauze. They started the technique that's called Stop the Bleed. And they say that that really contributed to saving his life. One of the young paramedics, Max Pollock, actually held his hand with the gauze just right on there. And a couple other volunteers with the medical unit helped out as well. Timing was everything, and especially the location right here. They were right across the street from also a fire department where there's an ambulance based, and they were able to take him right to the hospital. He went right into emergency surgery, and everyone is just saying at this point in time that Zach is so lucky to be alive.
And he told you he didn't even really realize how bad it was or what had happened at first.
Yeah, no, he said that he didn't know what had happened. He thought that maybe he broke his jaw. He said that he felt the snap of it, and he said, okay, maybe my jaw is broken. And then he started to feel the blood and he said, this isn't good. He said as he was in that ambulance being taken to the hospital, he could start to feel himself actually fading away. He thought that he was going to die. He said the paramedics stuck with him, just kept him awake, alert, kept him talking to him. And he just says that this is really an act of God. He believes that all those people were in the right place at the right time, that they all knew their training. And he just really credits God and the paramedics and all the first responders that were there for him from the rodeo to the hospital.
So how's he doing now?
So he's actually doing good. So he checked himself out of the hospital and drove back up to Louisiana, and that's where he's at home continuing to recover. He went back in for another surgery in Louisiana, and he has continued doctor's checkups. It's going to be a little bit of time before he's able to get back on a bull, but really that is his main end goal. He wants to keep bull riding. He has not made it to the professionals yet, still on some of the lower I don't want to call it lower levels of bull riding, but he wants to eventually make it to the pro circuit for bull riding.
When he told you that his goal is to get back on top of a bull, what was your reaction to that?
My reaction to just talking to Zach, it's in his blood. He's told me that the whole bull riding community has become part of his family. He said that those are really the people. He says that he has a lot of moms and dads in the bull riding community. He's taken on some kids himself that he's mentoring and teaching the sport to as well. So it doesn't shock me because Zach, it's in his blood, it's in his DNA, and it's something he wants to continue to do.
And so what's next on this road to recovery for him?
So it's just continued doctor's checkups. And as you can see right there, the one interview I did with him, you can just see the gouge that he had where the bull cut him right there. But he said it's going to be continued doctor's visits, potentially maybe some more surgeries, but just really those doctor checkups, making sure he's okay, making sure everything is going smoothly with his recovery.
Gosh, a terrifying incident to happen. Certainly thankful that those first responders were there, that they were able to help and everything, because this could have been a whole lot worse.
It really could have been. And that's what the first responders were talking about, the stop the bleed technique. That's just applying pressure right away, making sure that if somebody has a major cut, major wound, that they're able to stop that bleed. And Zach even said that maybe his story will help others, from little kids to older adults, just seeing that this technique could help save a life, and it saved his.
Yeah, well said. Kimberly Quizon with Fox 13 Tampa. We really appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live this afternoon.
Thank you. Talk to you next time.
All right, we'll talk soon. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. The tech landscape is changing thanks to AI. I'm sure you know that. We hear new developments in artificial intelligence weekly, probably daily, sometimes even hourly. It seems like things are constantly changing and evolving. But part of that, experts say, is that it is also making some Apple products more vulnerable to hackers, where before they really weren't quite as vulnerable. The conventional thinking was always that you didn't have to worry about that as much if you were a Macintosh user or something like that. But experts are now saying Mac users really need to be more vigilant because AI is making it easier for hackers to breach more security systems. I spoke with Matt Rose, who is the CXO of TechRage IT in Winter Springs, to talk about why that is.
That has always been the traditional thinking. I mean, in all honesty, I think people in the tech field kind of knew that was not always true, but it was more, always liked the saying that Macs weren't more secure, they were more obscure, so that people weren't going after you as much. But yeah, with the AI, that's definitely changing for those Mac users.
And so why now are they kind of more vulnerable than they were?
So a lot of it is that when, viruses and, different techniques have been around for obviously a very long time. They always looked at the fact is the Windows PCs were just much more available. There were more people using them. It was easier to write both programs, which are basically malware applications at the same time. And so they just targeted their efforts to that. Now with AI, just like what everyone sees the benefits of AI, where you can typically do things easier, they're actually using that to write applications or write malware that is going towards a Mac that otherwise wasn't really possible. But now they have the help of AI to help them build nefarious applications.
Does that also make the malware a more serious threat?
It does. And that's one thing that is really, obviously there's all these awesome benefits of AI that most fields have seen. There's the minor, not minor thing. There's the thing everyone's talking about how you have to be, make sure you're still smart about it and not putting personal data into ChatGPT or otherwise. But the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is it's really opened a door for attackers because they can have more sophisticated attacks. They're able to attack quicker. They're able to change quicker. So it's really changed the game for them as well.
And so obviously we need to be more vigilant. What are some things that you recommend?
So it's really the first and foremost. I mean, we've talked about this via a number of topics. The first and foremost is always being more vigilant and paying more attention. There's other things that no matter if you're using a personal computer or a work computer, you should be making sure to have up-to-date security software. And that's not just antivirus software. There's various other pieces of software now that can help detect. Antivirus is only one piece of that puzzle. There's things like having multi-factor authentication on as much as you can. So even if something happens, hopefully your files are protected and your emails are protected via multi-factor. But it's really kind of having as many layers of security protection as you can, in addition to the just obviously having that, realizing that things aren't as good as they appear to be. So things that pop up in your computer are not always real.
Yeah. And what are the risks of this? When we're talking about these malware threats, what are some of the risks that could happen?
Well, you can basically lose not only, on a personal computer, not only get access to your bank account, but in a business, you could lose trade secrets. You could give out all their personal information, because if someone gets into your computer, whether it's a Mac, a PC, or otherwise, they can copy your keystrokes, meaning they get all your passwords. They can monitor what you're doing. They can actually take over your computer when you're not around in extreme cases. And then because of that, it makes it very difficult for security professionals to actually find out what happened. We've actually had cases where a personal computer has been what's been compromised, and all log files point and show that you're accessing from your home, from your office, whatever it may be. Whereas it's a lot different when someone actually gets your password and is able to access from a different country. You can obviously see that they're not local. So, but they can still get access to everything. They can exfiltrate your data, while you're sleeping or whatnot, and get, so that even if you catch them, they may have already gotten the files and data that they need.
With these hackers kind of weaponizing AI against other tech users, is this something that is going to be a growing problem when we talk about the increasing strength of these malware attacks and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't want to fearmonger, but I think it's just, you have to realize that things that are good for us, as AI can be, and as the huge advancements we've made in various fields, that's awesome. But you have to realize that there's always kind of the shadow of that there's always the kind of nefarious business that, we're out here running businesses or doing personal things for good. That's literally what they're doing. They're running businesses trying to do bad things. So as much as we see the positive, they see the negative of it. So we do have to realize that as much as we get these, we should realize we have to take that much more of a concern of a security of both our data and our computers more seriously as well.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live. We'll be right back. Live look at Epcot right now, where one of the rides there, a very popular ride there, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, one of two popular Disney rides that Disney's announced today it is going to end the virtual queue for. We talked with Theron White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info.
So if you visited Walt Disney World ever since COVID, and a little bit before that for the Rise of the Resistance attraction, you have had to use the virtual queue system. You got to wake up at 7 in the morning and you got to basically join this lottery system to jump on the rides. Over the past couple of years, it's definitely gotten a lot easier to be able to get a virtual queue, but it's still something you've had to think about. Well, now you're not going to need to. Starting February 24th, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, the new rendition of Splash Mountain over at the Magic Kingdom, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, the roller coaster over at Epcot, neither of them are going to need the virtual queue. Again, that is starting Monday, February 24th, and I'm personally very excited. I love both of these attractions, and I'm glad to know that I could just show up and go and enjoy these rides and you don't have to do that 7 a.m. time.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I still haven't been able to ride Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind because of the virtual queue, so I'm pretty excited about it too. Now, talk to me about how long have these rides been in the virtual queue? I know Tiana's obviously since it kind of first reopened after the retheming.
That is correct. So Tiana's has had it since the very beginning. So has Cosmic Rewind when they both opened. My friend Drew actually did the math, and it's been, by the time February 24th happens, Cosmic Rewind will have been in the virtual queue system for over 1,000 days. So that is a very, very long time to be in this system that was meant to be a bit of a temporary offering. The Tron Light Cycle Run roller coaster at the Magic Kingdom itself did not have it for very long. So it's weird that Cosmic Rewind has had it for this long of a time. But either way, I'm excited that it's finally here. It's going to be nice to be able to just walk up to the ride, see the wait time, and jump on. That also means that you can do it multiple times a day. Currently, the only way that you could do it twice in one day was to get a virtual queue and to buy yourself an individual lightning lane to go on that attraction. It's an amazing, amazing roller coaster. So I do highly recommend getting to Cosmic Rewind when you can and sit in the front row. But I'm glad now that there's not these extra steps.
And so why do you think the change is being made now?
So the virtual queue was initially set up when we go all the way back to Star Wars Rise of the Resistance because the attraction was so insanely popular. It was really trying to help kind of spread the crowds out. Now that was done even more so when COVID happened because they really didn't want big crowding of people. And so they've kind of just kept that at this point. The Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind roller coaster itself doesn't have the longest queue. So I'll actually be very interested to see what happens when the crowds rush that ride. But a ride like Tiana's Bayou Adventure at the Magic Kingdom has a massive queue, and I think it should have no problem holding 2 to 3 hours worth of guests if it gets to that point. Really, this was just a way to be able to hold the crowds at a certain level, make sure that the line didn't go out into the park, and really trying to regulate that. The negative, of course, being that if you didn't know about this virtual queue, if you didn't wake up at 7 a.m., if you didn't get lucky with the lottery system, there's a lot of ifs that could mean that maybe you could go to one of these parks and not ride on one of their signature attractions.
What do you expect to see with the wait times for these rides, in the next few weeks?
Well, definitely the opening day and maybe a couple of days afterwards, we should see a really big spike from people who have been wanting to go and enjoy these attractions. I think we'll probably see less complaints at guest relations as well from guests that maybe didn't know all about these rides and now they feel like they can just jump onto them and enjoy them. Overall, for both of these attractions, because they didn't just open, I don't expect us to see this massive, massive spike of people outside, of course, maybe the first couple of days. But they're good at regulating themselves, especially both of these attractions are very, very high capacity attractions. They can hold thousands and thousands of guests over the course of just a couple of hours. So I do think they'll regulate themselves out. It's going to be like any big ride, though. Usually in the morning, you're going to see the longest wait as everyone just rushes to that attraction.
So were these the last rides with virtual queues?
That is correct. So the only way right now that you can do a virtual queue after that date is going to be when they do stuff like Run Disney, or sometimes they'll sell merchandise and they add it in for a day or two. But yes, the virtual queue system as of February 24th will no longer be in place for rides at Walt Disney World. It might come back when they reopen Test Track at Epcot, but as of right now, we know it's going to be ending on the 24th.
All right. So before we shift gears here, last thing I want to ask you about the virtual queue. Any insider tips or any advice for folks who are wanting to maybe ride some of these rides once the virtual queue system goes away?
So once it goes away, I mean, it's really just going to be like a normal ride. Just go there right at the beginning if you really want to make sure you get on it. I can say that for Cosmic Rewind, the Guardians of the Galaxy coaster at Epcot, it is really, really good at not going down, and it has a fantastic capacity. Even with them doing the virtual queue, there's been times that I showed up at 2 p.m. and you almost walked right onto the ride. So I'm hoping that continues, that we can see wait times that are under an hour for that attraction. And then we'll have to see for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. That is also a high capacity attraction. So I'm hoping that really you'll see our big spikes from the 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. If that's the number one ride you want to do, get there at opening, go right for it. But the rides usually are good at regulating themselves towards the evening.
Let's also talk a little bit about Universal Volcano Bay Nights, because tickets now on sale for that, and you're looking at a live look at Volcano Bay right now.
Yes, this is something I am very, very excited for. So when they were first building Volcano Bay years and years and years ago, they tested nighttime lighting, and they have all of this equipment out to be able to run this at night. And they've never done it. It's very weird. It's actually a complaint that people have had saying, we've got this park ready. It would be amazing to do at night, especially during those really hot summer days. And now Universal is finally coming out with it. The Universal Volcano Bay Nights, it's going to be $99 per person. They're only doing 5 days. That's going to be April 12th, April 26th, May 3rd, May 10th, and May 17th. So when you buy one of these tickets, you get to go in as of 4 p.m., but the event doesn't actually start until 7. And so from 7 till 10 is the actual event time. You're going to be able to get some free food items. You're going to get a Coca-Cola Freestyle cup with unlimited refills. There's going to be entertainment and DreamWorks characters that are going to be there. And of course, you're in the water park at night, and they said there's going to be limited admission. So expect short waits, free food, free drinks, and to be able to go around this park.
What do you think took so long for them to take this step?
That's actually a very, very good question. I don't really have an answer for that. This would have been something that I would have thought they would have done maybe last year, a couple of years ago, if they were trying to boost up attendance or get people to come to the park more as people were waiting to go to Epic Universe. But instead, we're actually getting this event right before Epic Universe opens. So perhaps it's a test for something they can offer later in the year. Maybe they're expecting massive, massive amounts of people to come to the parks, and it might almost overrun some of their parks. So they want an option of something to do at night. To be honest, I don't really have an answer, but I can say that I'm very excited. I already bought my ticket for the first night because ever since I saw the construction of this, I have wanted to check out this park at night. It's one of the greatest water parks in the world. I have visited them all around the country and around the world, and this water park is insane if you've never been to it. So if you visited Walt Disney World ever since COVID,
And so those tickets are now on sale. We are going to, well, that does it for us, actually, here on Florida Live. Appreciate you joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll be here again at 2 p.m. tomorrow for another live hour of Florida Live.
Florida Live starts now.
Good afternoon to you, and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local, Fox13News.com, and Fox35Orlando.com. We've got a lot to get to over the next hour, including the virtual queue ending for two popular rides at Disney. We will tell you everything you need to know about that and how to prepare and handle the wait times for those rides moving forward. At 2:40, we're speaking with Fox 13 Tampa reporter